House of Ramirez does not do sports, politics, or religion. However, understanding that the city elections are this year and how impactful and important it is for all of us Atlantans, I have decided to open my platform to politics, to give a fair shot to each running candidate to tell their story. This conversation needed to happen, and we are having the conversation for the love of community. Hey guys, this is House of Ramirez. You already know what's up. We out here in the hot streets of Atlanta. We're representing. We're spotlighting different entrepreneurs and different people in our community that are doing big things. And today I have a great honor to speak to Mr. Bond. Mr. Bond, can you please go ahead and tell us who you are and where you are from so our audience can get to know you?
Well, thank you for having me, and I want to say hello to everyone. I'm michaeljbond. I'm a native Atlantan. I've been here my entire life. I've raised my own kids here. I've been in the mortgage business, and I'm your post-1 representative on the Atlanta City Council.
Okay, well, I think that's fascinating, and you do so much for us. The last thing that I had the honor of looking into was your food drive. So it's not just you're here in the community, you've been active in the community, and there's a difference. And for many of us that have had generations here in Atlanta, we see that, we appreciate that. So I want to go ahead and shout you out for everything that you've been doing thus far. So it's nice to see that you're a fellow Atlantan, alien, and you're here with us and giving back so much. I want to ask you, I don't do politics, I don't do religion, I don't do sports. But I thought that it should have been an amazing thing to just bring all candidates onto my platform to give them an opportunity to let the audience know what they got going on, what plans they are planning for the future. So I want to go ahead and ask you and dig into some questions. My first question for you is, what do you consider to be the top 3 issues in your area?
Well, I have the privilege of representing all of Atlanta. So I'm one of 3 at-large members on the Atlanta City Council. And even though we have to live in particular areas of the city for our particular post, everybody in the city of Atlanta gets to vote for us. And so I've got the honor of representing everybody in Atlanta. And as I make my way around the city, the number 1 is crime and the effects of crime on our community. Second, I would say affordable or workforce housing, dealing, not only making sure we have adequate housing for folks who want to live in the city, keeping the city affordable, but that we've got great opportunities for people who want to, start a family, buy a first home. We want them to be able to do that in Atlanta. As a part 2 to that, but not second to that necessarily, is making sure that all of those who are challenged, who are under the category of being homeless, that we want to make sure that we provide resources and opportunities for them to transition from being without a home to getting a home. And then third, we want to make sure that the people are getting a return on the city services that they actually pay for, that for the taxes that they spend, their precious tax dollars, they're getting a return on the service, whether that's be their sanitation service, highways and streets, whatever the city provides, that they're getting their money's worth.
And I think those are 3 key points. And also, thank you for clarifying that. For many of people listening and tuning in, it's your position is actually, even though you live in one part of the city, you actually help all of the city, not just that particular place. And that's what the difference is between post 1 at large and districts. So thank you for clarifying that. So yes, housing is a big issue. I was just talking to family the other day, and housing seems to be a key point of view for everybody. Everybody has a need somewhere to sleep at the end of the day, so the fact that you're highlighting that and you're paying attention to that, that's amazing. So we need that. And also our displaced homeless citizens of Atlanta, it's a big deal. It's not like it just popped up. It's here in Atlanta, it's everywhere. But the fact that you're highlighting that as well and wanting to do something about it and are paying attention to it, a lot of people turn the blind eye. So that's important too. And we've seen recently, you know, with COVID, it's impacted our businesses, right? And a lot of employment positions. So we do have different conversations throughout the city about different things. We pay for this. Why aren't we getting this? But it's a whole thing. It ties in together and we're all doing our best. And the fact that you're highlighting that too, saying, hey, if the citizens of Atlanta are paying for this, let's do something about it so it can keep a steady form of flow for what you're paying for. You're getting exactly that. I think that's very important. Those are very hot topics that are here in the city, and I'm glad that you're paying attention to that. I want to ask you, what makes you want to do this? You have already been doing this. What makes you want to continue doing this? What's your motivation?
Well, there's no greater privilege than to serve the public. And I got to see firsthand, really from my parents when I was growing up, what it means to serve the public and to serve the greater community. My parents were part of the students who desegregated Atlanta, but way back in 1960. And so I come from a family of, you know, educators and activists, basically. And they were also founders of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which originally was intended to be an offshoot of SCLC that Dr. King had established, but they quickly broke away from Dr. King and SCLC and the NAACP, which is odd for my father because he ended up at the end of his career being the chairman of the national NAACP. But that's another story. But having watched them my entire lives, particularly my dad, who was elected, he was first elected in July of 1965 to a House seat that was opened up. There was only one African-American in the state legislature in the early 60s. That was Senator Leroy Johnson. He was the first African-American elected since Reconstruction. And there was a lawsuit against the way Georgia had apportioned its districts. So you could be in a district that was represented by someone of the majority population, but they wouldn't live in your community. They had you could have several at-large members in one district, or you know the districts were drawn in such a way that they were basically gerrymandered. And so there was a lawsuit, one man, one vote lawsuit, that resulted in the fair appropriation of districts. And so a lot of seats opened up for minorities in Georgia. My father was one of those who got one of those first seats. And so as he moved around in his district and community, he often had us with him. I'm in the middle of 5 kids. And so he made his living because he was in a big demand as a speaker. So he traveled quite a bit, but when he was back in Atlanta, he would be gone, you know, during the school year, anywhere from 4 to 6 days a week. And so when he was back, he often took us with him, whether it's to the community meeting, down to the state capitol, to a demonstration, a march, you name it. So I spent the first 20 years of my life following him around, being involved in politics. I mean, I was actually involved in a political campaign when I was 5 years old. And so I got to see it up close. I worked on Andy Young's first congressional race that he lost, actually. But he won 2 years later. But I worked in that campaign too. My father would farm us out to different campaigns around the city. We would leaflet cars, you know, leaflet parking lots, you know, go door to door. We would do all that kind of thing. So I got to see that firsthand. Now, my intention was to be an artist. I wanted to be a graphic artist. So I figured that maybe as a young person, I said, well, I might dabble in politics just because my dad did it. And then, you know, just go on with my career. But once I got involved as an adult, I got bitten by the bug, and I loved everything that I had seen growing up. Became even doubly real for me, and more rewarding. You know, serving the public, my actual self, not just assisting someone else in doing it. And so I love what I do. I've made this my career. I feel like it's a spiritual calling, and I feel called to do it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, there's an old saying, of course, if you love what you do, it's not work. And this isn't work for me. I love doing it. It's like a ministry. So this is why I do what I do.
I believe that that is very true. When you have a calling, there's no fighting it. No matter what direction you go, you can't fight that. You always come back to that. And the fact that your roots are very deep into the community, your family has given so much time, so much effort, so much energy. That's something to be commended for as well. So kudos to your family too. They definitely paved the way. And I think it's so funny you said that your father would like branch you guys out, you and your siblings, into different campaigns. My mom, my biological mother, she's actually a farm girl. So she would always say, my father had kids so we could work the farm. He knew what he was doing. So, I just think it's amazing when you're doing something that's you're passionate about, and then you are able to pass the baton to your kids, and your kids know exactly what to do because you instilled in them the virtues, the morals, all the good stuff as to what to do when you're doing such. So your father definitely paved the way. Shout out to your parents. That's amazing. I want to ask you, what do you bring to this job that's unique to you? Now, I know you're running for reelection and other candidates also are running, but what makes you unique? Of course, you come from a background that highlights so many different things here in Atlanta historically. So that's something big. But what would you say that makes you unique for this position?
Well, I like to use the phrase, I'm not new to this, I'm true to it. I've basically spent, really my entire life, being involved in the community. And I love that involvement. I've been an activist. I've been arrested for my convictions. I've walked in marches. I've knocked on doors. I've sought to feed the hungry and wash the feet of others. And, Goethe, my favorite quote is by Goethe. It says, all knowledge I possess, others may acquire, but my heart is all my own. And so I believe that I've got the heart for service. I believe that is what makes me different. It's the passion that I bring to this office, the commitment. I believe that it is unique. Others, of course, aspire to do the same things, and I don't knock them. But I believe that I'm called to do it. I have the passion to do it. And I believe that I do it well because I love what I do, and I chase it unselfishly.
I agree with you. You walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And it's very evident that that's what you've been doing for such a long time. And again, I like to make it clear, just like you said, we're not knocking anybody. This is a positive environment. So we're just spotlighting you. So thank you for that. I want to ask you, why should we vote for you over the other candidates? And of course, like I mentioned, you're running for reelection. Why should we vote for you over the others?
Well, I believe people should vote for me as opposed to the other candidates because I've delivered proof of service. As a legislator, I have introduced more legislation than any person in the history of the city per term, living or dead. I believe in making policy, and the policy that I deliver upon is policy that's been generated out of the community. I have proven what others would propose to do. I probably have already done it. I am really big on making sure that the input that I get from the community results in legislation that's going to improve their lives or improve their circumstance. I believe in doing great constituent services because I believe people ought to get a return on the taxes that they pay, regardless of what part of town they're in, whether it's East Lake or West Lake, Bankhead or Buckhead. You deserve to get a return on your hard-earned tax money. And so one of the things I'm proudest of is that I've also never voted for a tax increase in my entire career because I believe that Atlantans are taxed enough and that we ought to be able to do what we need to do for you with what you're already given. And so I'm proud that over the last, since returning to office, I was in the District 3 spot back in the 90s, but I left office and the citizens asked me to come back I'm in the at-large space, and I've never voted to raise your taxes, and I never will, because I know that everybody who works hard pays that money. They expect us to do the best that we can with it, and I believe that I have delivered on that. You know, I work hard, I work late, and I absolutely love it. And so I think that in being your councilman, you know, for Atlanta, you know, I bring very, very ardent dedication to what I do. And so it's not just limited to the legislation and the work in City Hall. We also do a substantial amount of work servicing the community away from the office. We have a current effort underway, a partnership with HelloFresh, Pratt Industries, and Second Helpings Atlanta to feed 8,000 families a week. We do it every Wednesday. We did it today. We're going to do it again for the next calendar year. Prior to that, we fed families in our partnership with Hosea Helps all last year during the pandemic, and we continue to do it. We support families. We support efforts to make sure folks get vaccinated, make sure they get the community resources that they need. And we want to be a one-stop shop for Atlanta's needs, and we do provide that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm glad you highlighted on that, because it circles back around to the 3 topics that we mentioned earlier. We're not only paying enough to get the services that we need here in Atlanta, and you're doing just that for us, but you want to continue that. So that's something to pay attention to. I want to thank you for that, because it gave us an inside feel of who you are. And, you know, a lot of times I was telling the other person earlier this past week, I was telling them a lot of people see vote for so-and-so or vote for Leslie, vote for House of Ramirez, but they don't see skin and bone. And you guys bleed just like us. You guys have families just like us. Go grocery shopping just like us. You guys are human. So I thank you so much for making time to coming on my show and letting the audience know who you are, so we could get a feel for why you're doing this and why you want to continue. So I'm excited about this. It's not the last time, it's the first time you're on my show. And I want to ask you, you know, I'm very big on shout outs. So if you have anybody you want to shout out that's been holding you down throughout your life journey or your career journey, if you have a short list, go ahead and shout them out, but also give us your website, your social media handles, so we can follow you and support you.
Well, if I had to shout out anybody, first I want to shout out Atlanta, because Atlanta has stuck with me a long time. Everybody that's voted to me to allow me to live my dream are the people who vote for me. So I want to shout them out first. And then, of course, my family, my kids, Lauren, Michael, and Skylar, have been with me the entire time. I raised my kids myself here in Atlanta. You know, they've always backed me up. They always make me feel like a king. It's good to have daughters, you know, they make you feel good. And, you know, my son is my best friend. So I really appreciate that. So we want to thank, you know, the staff, people that we work for. We want to shout out the volunteers that help us week in and week out, that do things here and around the city. And of course, just want to thank all my family and friends. I mean, they stick with me shoulder to shoulder. And, you know, I've got some of the best friends and family that the envy, the people would envy. And of course, we want to thank everybody who votes. I mean, I couldn't do what I do without voters. And, you know, every 4 years, we get tested at the polls, and Atlanta voters have had confidence in me, and I deeply, deeply appreciate them.
Most def. And I think that's amazing. You know, you're including everyone that's been holding you down, and of course the community, because that's what we're all about in Atlanta. In case nobody has heard yet, and other states and other parts of the world are listening and tuning in, know that Atlanta is big on community. So we don't take voters lightly. We don't take our community lightly. So thank you so much for that. I want to ask you, can you please give us your website and social media handles where we could go ahead and follow and support you?
Sure. My website for the campaign is bondforatlanta.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at michaeljbond. On Facebook, it's Michael Julian Bond. And of course, we have another page specifically for the campaign, that's bondforatlanta.com.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Well, I want to thank you so much for making time to coming on my show. And until next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me the platform. And it's great to be here. And I look forward to being back.
Most definitely.
Make sure to follow House of Ramirez on all social media platforms.